Hello and welcome to Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Theodore Henry. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. What will you be doing to help raise awareness and possibly fight this disease? Here is something you can do to assist. Encourage your family members to get tested for the disease. Yes, breast cancer does not discriminate. While females are predominantly affected, males can and have suffered from the disease. We'll have more breast cancer information you can use during the month and beyond. Come, we have another stimulating show, starting with the news.
Good day, I'm Adrian Atkinson and this is your JIS News for Monday, October 2, 2023. 40,000 National Water Commission customers in northwest St. Catherine are tapped to benefit from significant upgrades to its pipelines. Improved water supply will be realized by December for areas such as Jericho, Yuaton, Mount Rossa and surrounding communities. Minister with responsibility for water, Senator Matthew Samuda, toured the area last week where major pipe laying and other infrastructure works are being carried out. According to Minister Samuda, the project represents $125 million of investments, which includes the installation of pipelines from the Jericho Well facility to connecting lines along the main road and interconnecting pipelines for existing network.
That investment includes new mains, new distribution mains in excess of 16-inch distribution mains. There are also 6-inch distribution mains which are going at the community level. We've also put in pressure reduction valves that help us to reduce breakage in the lines, and we've also done significant work on the pump houses to ensure that the pumps are the capacity that match the number of citizens in this area.
Minister Samuda says the NWC will also realize cost savings from the improvement works to pumps and wells. He further noted that persons in the community are already receiving water due to some upgrading which was done on the pumps and on some of the lines. The minister is urging persons connected illegally to the pipeline to get regularized with the NWC.
We're doing our part. We're going to need the citizens to do their part. So those who are not connected to the network legally, we're going to be working with them to get them onto the network legally.
Minister Samuda said road repair is included in the project and urged the public to be patient as the pipe laying works progress. The Ministry of Local Government and Community Development has started a comprehensive mapping program of cemeteries across the island. Portfolio Minister Desmond McKenzie made the disclosure during a recent tour of Western Hanover.
It takes some time, because we're looking at close to 100 or more public cemeteries across the island. So it takes some time. I know we have completed the critical three out of the 4 we have completed already. We have been mapping the cemeteries. The ones that are not being used, we're taking them out of the system and concentrating the efforts on the ones that are being used. Once that program is rolled out, we have already identified a source of funding that will be used once we have completed.
Minister McKenzie added that maintenance will be included in the program cost.
When the mapping is completed, we have to put the costing in it. Not just the costing alone, but also a portion for maintenance. Because it makes no sense that we bush it today and tomorrow it grows. So we are putting in a component of maintenance in it.
Jamaica's maritime sector is being urged to develop innovative solutions to manage risks in the industry. Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, Daryl Vaz, made the call in his presentation at the Caribbean Maritime University CMU's conference on Thursday. The conference formed part of discussion on decarbonizing, green financing, reducing plastic litter and environmental waste in the marine space in observance of World Maritime Day.
In maritime transportation activities, risks are a constant factor at all stages, from the beginning of a voyage to final delivery. However, the constant factor can be controlled by understanding the risks and using the right tools and strategies to mitigate them. It is necessary to implement a transportation risk management methodology, which would involve the identification, analysis, and evaluation of common risks in different stages of the process.
Meanwhile, Minister Vaz also urged the Maritime Authority of Jamaica, MAJ, to seek out partnerships to advance development in the maritime sector.
I urge the CMU and the MAJ to forge collaborations with the Scientific Research Council, local universities, engineers, and software developers to combine their skills and creativity to contribute towards this global shift that is certainly coming, and as a matter of fact, is certainly closer than many of us believe.
Minister Vaz also issued a call to Jamaica's marine engineers to take the lead globally on creating solutions to mitigate the risks of transporting electric cars by ships. X-ray diagnostic care at the Kingston Public Hospital will improve significantly when 3 new units become operational by the end of October. The first shipment arrived late September following a contract signing between the Southeast Regional Health Authority, SARA, and ARRL Limited. The companies to supply, install and maintain 6 X-ray machines at a cost of over $453 million. The remaining 3 X-ray machines, when delivered in October and November, will go to the Bustamante Hospital for Children, Spanish Town Hospital and the National Chest Hospital. The machines can take scans at 360-degree angles and has different heights and features to accommodate specific injuries. Waiting time for patients with needs for such services will also be reduced across all 4 hospitals. And finally, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is encouraging voluntary blood donations to support the increase in the demand during the current dengue outbreak. This need for blood and blood products would arise in cases of severe dengue. The dengue virus has 4 different strains, dengue virus 1 to 4, and the source is the bite of an infected female Aedes aegypti mosquito. While dengue is ordinarily a mild disease, in some instances it can advance to severe dengue and may cause organ failure, blood loss, and severe fluid depletion that can lead to shock and death. Persons who can donate blood are those 17 to 60 years old who are in good health and have a body weight of more than 110 pounds. Blood can be donated at any of the blood banks, 11 collection sites across the island, and at most of the major hospitals. And that's it for JRS News Today. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thank you so much for watching.
Breast milk is the ideal food for babies and can satisfy all the infant's nutritional needs for the first 6 months of life. It provides much needed antibodies to protect them against all kinds of infections. Babies exclusively breastfed have less episodes of diarrhea, acute respiratory infection, and skin conditions. Breastfeeding also benefits mommies too, through decreased risk of breast and ovarian cancers, improved postpartum recovery, and reduced iron loss. Breastfeed your baby to give him or her the best start for a healthy life. Remember, breastfeeding is best.
Nearly 2 weeks ago, Jamaica experienced a 4.9 magnitude earthquake. Following the tremor, I'm sure you might be wondering what measures are in place if there's a major disaster. Let's find out more in this feature.
Jamaica is prone to earthquakes. The country's susceptibility to this natural disaster is because the island sits on a very active Caribbean plate margin. An earthquake is a sudden violent shaking of the ground as a result of movements within the Earth's crust or volcanic action. Although earthquakes can be devastating, the country's security forces are equipped to deal with any eventualities. Once an earthquake happens, both the Jamaica Constabulary Force and the Jamaica Defence Force will initiate procedures and set up their communication centres to disseminate information. An individual from each entity would be the liaison officer between the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, and the security forces. This will aid in efficiently deploying individuals to affected areas.
In the initial phase, the JCF would establish a command post at the Police Emergency Communication Center, gather information as to what transpired or what occurred, and to provide that information to ODPEM.
The security forces will also provide safety, especially where dislocation happens.
We would be required to ensure that the area or areas affected are properly cordoned and secured. We'd have to ensure that routes leading to and from our major hospitals are clear, or to provide information as to the clearest and safest routes to and from those hospitals, and ensure that they are maintained in a safe manner for the emergency units to respond.
A key asset of the JDF in the aftermath of an earthquake is the Disaster Assistant Response Team, DART. This team includes specialized engineers, medical practitioners, and logisticians, among others.
They are so equipped that they can be moved to anywhere in the island and be self-sufficient for a period of time in assisting ODPEM or the government of Jamaica in general with any disaster.
The JDF has many capabilities. Its engineers can help with heavy equipment and search and rescue, while its medical personnel can be projected to other places across the island and assist the Ministry of Health with providing care to injured persons. The JDF also has an air wing that comes in handy during disasters such as earthquakes.
There are strategic aircrafts that we're able to use to hoist goods, equipment, etc. as required from one place to another. In an earthquake, the likelihood of the roadways being blocked or congested exists, and as such the movement of cargo, etc. for assistance will be reduced.
And if there is a fire after an earthquake?
Our aircrafts are also equipped to move personnel as well as to assist the JFB, particularly in areas where we might have fires, fires in urban areas, etc. We are so equipped to use what we call a Bambi bucket system to douse such fires.
The additional assets of the Defence Force provide further assurances to other sections of the island as well.
Now, in the JDF, all soldiers are disaster risk officers. So for those that are in the western side of the island, if the disaster is concentrated in the western side of the island, they have the basic training that is required to then start the process of assisting the ministry elements, ODPM, etc. There until our specialized elements are moved to that area.
Unfortunately, when disasters happen, sometimes there are unscrupulous individuals who carry out acts to capitalize on the vulnerability of others. Both the JCF and the JDF say they are able and willing to prevent crimes of opportunity.
Ensure that those who would want to seize the opportunity to commit crimes, such as looting, don't get that opportunity.
Of course, last but not least, the JDF assists the JCF with internal security, policing, so to speak, within the country. In an earthquake situation, there might be need for key point protection, protecting of key installations to prevent theft, etc. We are ready and able to deploy to assist the JCF to ensure that these things does not happen.
Jamaica has had several major earthquakes and tremors. The earthquake unit, which records seismic activities on the island, recorded a 5.4 magnitude earthquake on January 13, 1993. It was the most significant earthquake recorded since 1957. As a result of this earthquake, Jamaica experienced damage to houses, buildings, and other infrastructure. So although there are no specific times for earthquakes to strike, citizens and other individuals can be assured that the security forces are ready to act if a seismic activity occurs.
This is we're committed to reducing the impact of disasters occurring in Jamaica. We're ever ready to assist you before, during, and after a disaster. But everybody have a role to play, so make we work together and follow the plan. Whether rich or poor or where you come from, hurricanes affect everyone, so be prepared. Prevent Prevention is better than cure. Be prepared. Listen to ADPEM. A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
We've seen the harm this material has on the environment. It alters habitats and natural processes. It reduces ecosystems' ability to adapt to climate change. It affects the food production, the livelihood of millions of people, and also the social and environmental well-being of our society. What's the material we speak of? Plastics. Hear more about efforts to make Jamaica plastic-free.
Plastics. How did plastics become a crisis? It's an interesting issue if you really think about the history of what plastics are, what we use them for, how we consume them as individuals. The problem you have with plastics is that because of how good it is as a packaging material, because it is so light, so cheap, we have gotten away. We have overdone it. Everything is wrapped in plastic, even what doesn't need to be. The reality is 13% of Jamaica's waste is largely plastic, or is some form of plastic, whether it's PET, HDPE, PC, whichever other category of plastic it is. And we know that for the vast majority of this plastic, it is indeed plastic bottles. Why don't you just ban it? And people ask me that every single day. Just ban the plastic bottles. And quite frankly, you can't, because the alternative is glass, and globally there's a glass shortage. I don't know if there'll be some global event that makes glass far more available, and cleaner ways will come to sterilize it. But as it stands now, that's not an option. So we have to target it through a deposit refund scheme. But there are items that we have banned. Persons largely will remember the scandal bag ban, styrofoam ban, plastic straws. And the reasons were that these items are largely non-recyclable, they're non-biodegradable, and in many cases, because of how they're used, they emit carcinogens that are harmful to human health. We consume, especially with lunch boxes, a lot of gravy, a lot of heat. Heat and styrofoam not meant to mix in that sort of way for human consumption. Hence the challenge. Now, has the ban been perfect? No, there's no perfect public policy. Has the ban reduced by a few 100,000 tons the amount of plastic waste going into our waste stream? Absolutely. Is that a win? Absolutely. Are we proud of it? Absolutely. Can we tweak it to make it better? Absolutely. We have seen persons who have gone right outside of the regulations on plastic bags. So they've gone a little thicker or a little larger, trying to use plastic instead of paper-based and recyclable alternatives or reusable alternatives. That means we're going to have to move the goalpost. And that move will come this year. We're going to have to increase the size, both in terms of dimensions and thickness and types of plastic bags that are banned. So for all of those who may be online now listening to us and contemplating their next round of purchases, I would suggest strongly to you that you look at the recycling alternatives, because you will get stuck with goods. And the minimum order quantities for these sorts of things, you will have months of goods put down. And that increase in size is coming and coming fast. We took out styrofoam, or expanded polystyrene foam, as the appropriate term should be. The intention of the ban was not for you to switch styrofoam for plastic. It is the intention of the government to remove these plastic lunch containers from the waste stream by also expanding the ban to include them. Again, I would then suggest to those who import to do so with the minimum quantities, because you don't want to get stuck with something that you'll only be able to recycle. And no, we will not be reimbursing for those, because we're sending the signal clear. Our sewage plants and wastewater processing stations really can't manage these microplastics. There is no way for us to filter them out of the wastewater stream. We don't need them. They're deleterious to human health, deleterious to marine health. They can affect soil quality. They have to go. As a part of the expanded ban, we will include microplastics as a part of personal care products. Jamaica, the end of this financial year, will have a legislated deposit refund scheme. That system will have to work with customs, the NCRA, BSJ, NEPA, NSWMA, and indeed the Ministry of Industry in ensuring that the way we implement it is done seamlessly, causes no disruption to supply and production, and it is done in a way where it does not trigger further inflation. So if you think of what that's trying to achieve, right, that is trying to deal with issues of collection, it's trying to deal with building out a circular economy, it's trying to get in many ways the public, the business community to help us collect 13% of the waste and bring it along their routes of travel to points of collection to make it easier logistically for NSWMA. But it also will help us to reduce our carbon footprint. We're going to have to disaggregate all of the things that are classified as environmental management, and we're going to have to accept that as a part of our economic development doctrine as a country, we are going to manage our environment with very strict regulations in a manner that is enforced and that gives confidence but gives predictability. Cannot be haphazard. This is why I'm very happy that NEPA was able to report that 42 persons have been prosecuted. Now, we're going to go on a drive. I'm going to be working with the NCRA and indeed Customs and the JCF over the coming months. That number is going to increase significantly based on what we're seeing in society. And we're seeing it at the higher end of the economic scale and the lower end of the economic scale. And these strictures and penalties will be applied equally regardless of where persons are operating.
The Joint Select Committee of Parliament considering job descriptions, codes of conduct and performance standards for parliamentarians wants to hear from you. Send your opinions in writing by Tuesday, October 3, 2023 to Clerk to the Houses, Gordon House, 81 Duke Street, Kingston, or email us at clark@japarliament.gov.jm. Visit the Parliament's website at www.japarliament.gov.jm for details.
Did you know there are guidelines to take into consideration for an earthquake when building? Well, here are some necessary measures to take into consideration before you start your next construction project.
High-rise buildings are buildings above 10 stories. Mid-rise are between 5 and 9. And low rise is below 4, 1 to 4. Now, we have a lot of mid-rise and low-rise buildings. We have a few high-rise buildings. When it comes down to high-rise and what we call soft story buildings, those are the buildings with the open basement parking that is very common for the apartments especially. What we recommend is that they are designed, as was emphasized earlier, by an engineer, especially for the structural components. And those engineers must follow a code. It could have been the ACI code, or some persons might use the British code to design. But whichever code you use, you must be guided and provide the contractors or the constructors with enough information to execute. Now, some of the guidelines for simpler buildings, like a bungalow, we recommend that the rebars or the steel that they use be corrugated. We used to use the mild steel bars, but over the years we realized that the corrugated bars provide a better strength for the tensile aspect of the building. Corrugated bars are what you will see at the hardware with the grooves on the bar. So the plain bars are without the grooves, and the corrugated bars are the one with the grooves around the perimeter, the circumference of the bar. The problem is you cannot really design to prevent earthquake in a sense, because the sine wave and the other factors that comes with the wave, the most you can do is to probably focus on some critical areas. Critical areas for the building is like the column and the foundation. And of course, if your soil type is bad, If it's clay, it is a bad soil type, and so your foundation type has to be different.
Mosquitoes will breed in containers that hold water. Tightly cover water storage containers such as drums, buckets and tanks, or cover the water surface with cooking oil. Punch holes in all tins, plastic containers and boxes to prevent the collection of water before disposal. Cover old tires or fill with dirt. Scrub all vases once per week to remove mosquito eggs and dispose of garbage by placing in plastic bags. Do your part to prevent mosquito breeding. A message from the Ministry of Health.
COVID has taught us many things, and among those is that the dynamics of our environment has shifted somewhat in terms of how people think about themselves in their natural space. I mean, one of the greatest manifestations of that is the workplace. The workplace has changed because of COVID, because Jamaicans, the global citizen, have come to terms with their mortality. Now so more than any other time in the world, because COVID, as I said, has been the greatest equalizer known to man during this last 100 years. Everybody was afraid at some point in time that COVID would have gotten us and would have taken us out. And it never really mattered whether we had money or were poor, whether we were in North America or in Jamaica. And as a human instinct would dictate, many persons are now rethinking how they work, where they work, what time they work, and the concept of self-care and taking care of self, family, community is becoming a lot more relevant. That represents for us an opportunity, particularly because we exist in a pandemic of lifestyle-related ailments. It is how we live that is facilitating our demise. To a large extent, the cardiovascular disease, the salts, the sugars, the fats, the tobacco, the alcohol, the lack of rest, the lack of physical activity. We have to get people nudged into greater health-seeking behavior. It cannot just be about cure, it has to be about prevention. And some of it we may have to legislate, like tobacco legislation, like school nutrition policy and what is served in our schools, like sugary drink. Our foundation championed that. Like the right of people to know what's in their foods, front of package labeling. But the reality is that generally Jamaicans don't like to get a checkup. They go doctor when they're sick. So while we single out men for being a little, afraid, it's better to bear the perception of being violated and detecting your prostate troubles early than to wait until it's too late. And at that stage, the violation don't really matter. So we're going to have to be bold about that and engage in greater community outreach. But I think we have to also advocate for people, Jamaicans, to do their annual screening.
Thank you for being with us today on Jamaica Magazine. Let's take encouragement from these words by anti-apartheid revolutionary Nelson Mandela. Do not judge me by my success, judge me by how many times I fell and got back up again. Join us again tomorrow for another interesting journey. Of course, you can visit our website, jis.gov.jm, for more news you can use. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.